Welcome to the 40th video in the series, Foundations of Communist Organizing. Today we'll be going over the 1951 piece by Bordiga, Characteristic Theses of the Party, which I have subtitled, Proletarian Vanguard Rejects Coalitionist Compromise. The class party is made up of the most advanced and resolute parts of the proletariat, which arise from the development of theory and class struggle, who then seek to maintain and make predictions from that theory, in order to educate and unite the masses' individual interests into a general struggle. Through preparations, it gathers the material means, weapons, supplies, and so on, for action, experience, and leads the working class as its general staff, while creating international unity of the communist movement. As time has passed, and the bourgeois system has built up its own tactics and methods of resistance against proletarian class struggle and its organizations, the most dangerous form that has arisen has been through the recuperation and presentation of options of class collaboration to sections of the proletariat. Therefore, the party needs to struggle directly against people calling for reformism, with even reformist positions rejected for agitational purposes, and reject any alliances with the middle classes or reformist organizations, which can only weaken it and the proletariat's position. In order to carry out its tasks in modern times, the party must transcend national boundaries and become an international party, producing an international. This party must be autonomous and independent from any organized political or military power, while defending, developing itself, and educating others about the movement. Its inner organization should be girded via the propagation of communist theory and program, along with activity alongside the masses struggling for their immediate interests. The party itself is a minority of the working class that has mastered revolutionary tactics in theory and practice, understood the general objectives of the proletariat and the historical movement internationally, such as a knowledge can never be held by any individual or even a small collection of workers. Rather, the party's general knowledge rests in the whole of its activities. In order to tap into and utilize such knowledge, there needs to be an organic unity of the whole party. It is unitary in doctrine and action, and leaders and followers in the party have discipline and obligations, while the party itself does not have compulsory, either physically or socially, participation. It focuses on the recruitment of revolutionary youth and their education and preparation for political activity, demanding lack of personal ambition or personality cult, while being able to uphold continuity and revolutionary tradition. Under certain circumstances, while the party might not ally with the middle class's organizations, it might seek alliance in other areas. The conditions wherein this occurs are informed on a historical basis, which determines the party's strategy and tactics, but under no circumstances can the party abandon its principles. Functionally, the international proletariat must be developed, and anything that hinders such development of the class struggle is anti-Marxist. Hence, reformist electoral demands of all kinds abandon the class struggle regardless of their intentions, and thereby electoral coalitions are abandoned by revolutionary communists. No bourgeois legality should be respected, and the need for insurrection even when alternatives are presented by the bourgeoisie and the opportunist factions must be recognized and sought at all times. Despite this, the party still takes part in all local and economic struggles. Any reduction in the independence and autonomy of the party is at all times viciously rejected, including, for example, any configuration of the United Front which calls on the party to make any sort of sacrifice in those terms. In addition, revolutionary communists must always practice revolutionary defeatism if they are within imperialist countries, and turn economic imperialist war into political civil war, refusing alliance with governments at war even when the imperialists declare that they are defending themselves. This must also be accompanied by an active fight for decolonization and national liberation, supporting armed resistance by all forces fighting against such, including, for example, with Black Americans fighting white capitalist metropolis. At all times, it seeks to take the offensive and aims for attack and conquest of political power, staunchly refusing any form of calls to quote-unquote return to a previous or new, quote-unquote, better form of capitalism. The party, no matter the circumstances forced by the bourgeoisie into response to the proletarian class struggle, expects no mercy and prepares only for the revolutionary civil war. Any opportunism or gradualism weaken the party's capacity to actually resist when the hammer inevitably comes down. The party at any and all times should reject any calls for peaceful coexistence, propagandizing about the incompatibility among classes and the realities and necessities of class struggle, which makes any form of pacifism impossible. Armed struggle and insurrection should at all times be prepared for. The proletariat and their party must accept this in order to be capable of engaging in class struggle. Any calls for pacifism, while imperialism and the bourgeoisie exist, can only ever be aimed at disarming the proletariat and removing their capacity for revolutionary influence. Hence, the party should maintain the historical line of preparation for the resurgence of international class struggle, reject any calls for peaceful coexistence, and prepare theoretically and materially. This requires the integration of all results of past experiences, and while objective and subjective conditions are undeveloped and practical activity are reduced, the final goal, which produces the ability to take advantage of inevitable development of subjective conditions, must always be kept in focus, with tactics employed which reach towards that in a dynamic way. Regardless of objective conditions, the proletariat's doctrine is unchanging because of its role in the historical dialect, and therefore the proletariat's movement should not have any revisions towards principles of any kind of the proletarian revolution. With the historic understanding, the party is able and should analyze contemporary social phenomena scientifically and use that to prove to the proletariat its correct position. Due to the form of reaction bourgeois society has adopted, that of quote-unquote peaceful coexistence and class collaboration, the party's targets must be the opportunist quote-unquote communist parties in order to re-centralize the proletariat on the correct line and produce a rigorous Marxist movement. In addition, the party currently lacks links with the masses, and so it should not seek to develop new theories or renovate old ones, as it cannot put them into testing via praxis, and any attempt to do so will only lead to incorrect stances developing atop incorrect stances. The proletariat needs a party to maintain theoretical continuity as the condensation of past experiences of struggles until conditions allow to take action. In this time, the party aims principally at propaganda explaining the correct political line and principles of revolutionary movement, which should penetrate and place itself among the masses at periods of historic crisis of capital. This penetration, done by attacking the opportunist parties, precludes entryism and coalition within those parties or organizations, with the pretext of extending our reach. This is good, as our tactics to get the proletariat to listen cannot breach our principles, else it confuses the proletariat and weakens the position of the party, which is only fit to carry out the struggle if it has a correct doctrine and political stance, which thereby precludes expedients that lead to deviation from principle. Attempts for coalition or entryism or committee formation with non-proletarian organizations are, of course, also obviously a fool's errand and only harms the party. However, unlike other political organizations, the party is willing to work with unions and other economic organizations that can be present within and grow influence, which have a voluntary membership, non-sectarianism in terms of politics, religion, or social opinions, and thereby not exclude all possibilities of autonomous class action, and which are entirely proletarian. The party helps develop economic associations, which accept its principles and leadership, and ones that do not, it builds a network of communists, cells, groups, and factions within in an attempt to take them over from within. The party pushes for all such organizations to seek interconnection with all other economic associations and remain fully open, though the party, of course, remains closed. And that is my summary of the 1951 piece by Bordiga, Characteristic Theses of the Party. If you'd like to go over the quotations I derived this summary from, as usual, feel free to go into the description below and you'll find a link to this Google Doc. And you'll also find a link to the United Marxist Pact Discord server, wherein if you'd like to join in order to talk about anything related to communism, we'd love to have you. Tomorrow we will be going over the 1951 piece by Bordiga once more, Proletarian Dictatorship and Class Party. Thank you for joining me for today's topical summary, and I hope to see you then.